If you Google the keywords how to do laundry, you will come across hundreds of articles. Common to all is the advice of separating your colored clothing from your whites. But how many people actually do that? It turns out that the answer depends on how you pay for your laundry. In a study done in a laundromat in 1999, 44% of people who paid with quarters separated their clothes. However, when they paid the same amount but with a prepaid card, that number went up to 60%. The example of the laundry showed us that consumption of a product or service changes as a function of how you pay for that product or service. Today, it's becoming increasingly easy and convenient to make payments. Think about the electronic wallet. With an electronic wallet, you can use your mobile phone to make a purchase simply by tapping that phone on a terminal. Or the Octopus card has been in Hong Kong for a number of years. This is a prepaid RFID-based card, which again allows you to make a payment simply by tapping your wallet onto a terminal. What happens when the payment form changes and evolves away from cash? The biggest effect of changing away from cash is the fact that metering in a mental accounting sense becomes difficult. Think about a simple world in which you could either pay by cash or by credit card. When you pay by cash, you take out your wallet, you count the bills, you keep the change. You have a very good idea of how much you've paid because the process is very salient. When you pay by Octopus or by a credit card, it happens all so quickly. You don't see the numbers, you don't rehearse them. You lose memory for how much you've paid. And in fact, today it's becoming increasingly more difficult to keep track of how much people have paid. We're going to talk about a concept that we call the transparency of the payment mechanism. Cash is easily the most transparent of payment mechanisms simply because you have a very good visual idea of how much you're paying. But if you look at the transparency spectrum, as you start moving away from cash into checks or plastic, debit cards, credit cards, electronic payments, and finally autopay. Autopay is a system where you authorize your bank account to automatically make bill payments at the end of every month. What starts happening is that consumers lose track of how much they have spent. In fact, as you go from the spectrum from left to right, not only does the physical similarity of the payment mechanism to cash change, but also the salience of the payment experience itself reduces over time. What happens when, in fact, that salience goes down? We document 3 effects in our research. The first effect is the idea of making metering hard. We found in our research a number of years back that when you look at people that have made payments by cash, those payments are much more memorable and people are much more accurate recalling how much they had spent by cash. Here's a simple experiment. Next time your credit card bill comes home, try and guess how much that bill is going to be worth. Don't cheat, don't look online. And try and list down all the items that you think you're going to see on that statement. It turns out most people do a horrible job of predicting their credit card bill. They tend to not only forget smaller items, but they tend to underreport the prices that they paid on several items. So people in general have a poorer memory for expenses that have happened to the right of that spectrum. The second thing that happens when you move to the right end of the spectrum is, from a mental accounting sense, categorization becomes fuzzy. Remember my friend's grandmom who had money in different jars? Once you start paying by credit cards or by an electronic or e-wallet or a mobile wallet, it turns out that all of those expenses are going to get lumped into the same category. Therefore, mental accounting becomes hard. It becomes hard to track your expenses as a function of category. And finally, and this is a problem unique to credit cards, we found in our research with Amar Chima that people tend to use cues in the environment to make judgments about their wealth in a completely irrational way. In particular, in our research, we looked at the effect of credit limits on people's beliefs on how wealthy they were. And we found out that people actually tend to use the credit limit as a signal for how prosperous they are. When you combine these 3 factors, several things happen. People that tend to use electronic or mobile or low transparency methods of payment tend to be more impulsive. They tend to lose memory for their payments, and they tend to spend faster than people who actually use cash. If you want to control how much you spend, cash is still the king.